Taking a lot of money in from China because of the tariffs and the different things, and it's a very important relationship. I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important, but we're going to get along with China.
Saying the United States is going to allow 600,000 Chinese students to enroll in American schools, despite a crackdown from his own administration on student visas. No time frame was given for this new act, but this is after a volley of trade and tariff discussions between Washington and Beijing. The president also noting another potential tariff on China if they don't supply us, with rare earth.
They have to give us magnets. If they don't give us magnets, then we have to charge them 200% tariff or something, you know. But we're not going to have a problem. We had 200 of their planes were unable to fly because we were not giving them Boeing parts purposely, because they weren't giving us magnets. Therefore, we weren't giving them. But we have a much more powerful thing that's tariffs. If we want to put 100%, 200% tariffs on, we wouldn't do any business with China.
Joining me now here for national security, former Pentagon official and former Navy captain, Brent Sadler. And Brent, good morning to you. So there's been some back and forth with the Chinese as well, because there's a Chinese delegation that's in Washington, D.C. today. Now, Beijing is claiming this is for trade talks, but the United States says there's no formal negotiating session going on. There was definitely pushback from Treasury Secretary Bessent. Basically, that the Chinese just sort of showed up, it seems. I want to get your reaction to that first, and then also this issue of these students coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be surprising if the Chinese delegation arrived in D.C. So they certainly have something arranged or some kind of fact-finding mission that's underway. But again, as these trade negotiations go forward, it's clear, as the president has done in other cases, there's more than trade that's at hand in these tariff deals. We have a lot of very sharp national security concerns, which kind of leads into this issue with the Chinese students. There's 2 points to make on this. Not to say that Chinese students can come to the United States. We should welcome them, and they do provide both a tuition, inject of capital, but we have to know who those students are. The Chinese Communist Party has deliberately used what's called United Front to try to steal secrets, as well as to sow disuse. We saw that with the Hamas, and you notice that this is not limited to just the Palestinian issue. Chinese ambassador was in New York not too long ago, and Chinese students from Taiwan were protesting, and they were clamped down on. So it is a very real. It is enabled by things like the secret police stations, and Chinese consulates have also been shut down in Trump's first term because of this concern. So number one, know who's coming into the universities, but then also, as a father with college-age kids, I also want to make sure that when we do this, we're not elbowing out American students from these very prestigious and very well-established universities and for research.
It does seem like a very large number, in particular when you're talking about China and who those students are, because there has been recent stories of some problems with these Chinese students that were already here at Ivy League universities. And I also want to get something else we saw in the Oval yesterday was very interesting. It was that bilat between the South Korean president and President Trump. And when the South Korean president started to speak, he talked about North Korea. He wanted President Trump to come to the Korean Peninsula. He's mentioned that they felt safer when President Trump was in his first term, and that basically, and I'm paraphrasing this, but that under Joe Biden, you saw Kim Jong-un get more empowered, and then President Trump kind of pushed, respond. I'll talk to Kim Jong-un. I mean, it was a very interesting exchange between the two leaders. What did you make of that?
Well, going back to the first administration, yeah, clearly, business as usual wasn't working. Conventional thinking and the best advice at the time coming from many in the State Department and even in the Department of Defense was, continue with old policies, but nothing changed. And North Korea just kept getting more and more armed with nuclear weapons and acting more and more belligerent. And President Trump rightfully bucked that thinking and opened up the door. And we had a period of time where the North Koreans weren't doing nuclear tests or ballistic missile tests. We have seen that reverse. I'm not sure if we can go back to the way things were under Trump's first term, but actually engaging adversaries, but certainly not giving in to their demands or what they want, has worked in the past when you've got a strong position like President Trump has.
I had to laugh when he said that when he went to the DMZ, to the zone, that the Secret Service was not very happy with him. That gave me a chuckle. So there is a lot of tensions, obviously, right now in the South China Sea. The trilateral pact, that's Australia, the UK, is helping to enhance Australia's naval defense capabilities and stop China's threat in that region. The Philippines is reporting an unusual amount of force by China in the South China Sea. Beijing is saying it's got control of the second Thomas Shoal. That's a submerged reef that lies within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, and that surrounds all the Spratly Islands. Brent, you know this area very well. You've just returned from that region.
Yes, I was in Perth, Australia, where the home of future U.S. submarines there, the rotational. This will be at HMAS, the naval base in Stirling, about an hour drive south. Things are progressing in AUKUS. There are concerns. There's a lot of infrastructure and shipbuilding that's there that needs to be adjusted and made ready. But the 2027 deadline for the first boat to arrive, U.S. boat to arrive to be based there, there is some concerns, but it is a deal that serves Americans well if we can get our submarine presence increased, because that is a force that gets China's attention. And if we have a hope of trying to deter a conflict with China, this is one of the ways to do it. The other point I want to make about the South China Sea, the tensions there have been very high since earlier in the month. A Chinese destroyer that was intending to ram, and probably with lethal intent, a Philippine patrol vessel accidentally ran into one of their own Coast Guard ships. And there were buildup of maritime militia and other paramilitary forces in Philippine waters at the second Thomas Shoal. So another crisis is very likely. But the military activity around Taiwan and the potential for a conflict or crisis yesterday seemed to have subsided, perhaps connected with hopes that China has that this delegation that recently arrived in D.C. might be able to get some kind of deal or cut a deal with D.C.
It's interesting, too, that the Chinese delegation comes on the heel of the president just there yesterday, who, by the way, went to the Philly shipyard after his visit to the White House, because the South Koreans can be a strong partner in building new ships. We're a little behind on right now. And the Navy is also conducting tests of these newly built autonomous drone boats off of the California coast. And this could hinder China's advances across the Taiwan Strait. What do you think about that?
Now, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. The United States has a 2-week marriage. It's the only way that we get out of this strategic vulnerability, and it is that, it's a danger, is that we have to work with our treaty allies like South Korea, Japan, and others to try to invest in and reinvigorate our defense industrial base. And the way you do that is by investing in shipyards like Philadelphia, which had been a Navy shipyard for a long time during the Cold War. We also have to embrace new technologies like the unmanned systems if we have hope of getting enough firepower out to sea in the next couple of years in time to deter China. Again, Beijing is making sure that they're ready to prevail in a war against us. So AUKUS, first submarine in Australia by 2027, getting new capacity in our shipyards with allies like South Korea and Japan. The timeline, the clock, it's all focusing on 2027 to get the backbone of a rapidly expandable maritime industrial base. So not a lot of time, but a lot of good developments.
And the Chinese have been faster, at a faster clip. Brent Sadler, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Great to talk to you, Brent. And